Hello, and welcome to the premiere of Author a la Carte. I am your host, Nicole Radosky Gant, and this is our first author of the night, Timothy Peterson, who is author of Damnation and a Side of Toast. Timothy Peterson was born and raised in New York. When he was 8, his mom, whose maiden name was Shelley, told him he was related to the Frankenstein monster. So, DNA be damned, it was the best bragging rights any 8-year-old could ask for, and exactly the inspiration needed to launch a monster obsessed kid into the world of story. Professionally, he's weaved in and out of illustration, animation, film, and design. He's also taught a thing or two in several New York colleges and universities. And while he's illustrated for other authors, Damnation and a Side of Toast is his first novel written and illustrated himself. Hello and welcome, Timothy.
Hello, Nicole.
So I thought we would begin with a selection from your story.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to read.
First of all,
Let's see.
I'm so sorry. I'm apparently too much caffeine. First, could you introduce your novel for our people? There are many people who probably have not necessarily heard of Damnation and the Side of Toast. Could you give them an introduction to the book?
Oh, of course. Well, Damnation and a Side of Toast came about of, love of mythology and a love of the area of, upstate New York, as well as wanting to play with a character who has failed for kind of longer than anyone else could possibly have failed for. And the devil seemed a fitting topic since he, no one started out with a better positioned, better situated with, no one's ever started out with better friends than he did. And he managed to screw up everything and end up where he ended up. So in that, I wanted to work with him in terms, as a character, in terms of how would he start over.
Excellent. And with that, we will have a 10 to 15-minute excerpt from Damnation and a Side of Toast.
Okay. I have unfortunately just lost my place, so I am zipping to find my spot. Now, in this, he's having this confrontation with a young girl where he needs to convince her to not kill him, or at least not shoot him. He's not entirely sure what will happen if she shoots him, except that he is sure it will set her off on a bad path and one that she's done nothing to deserve. So, the devil flew from the diner. Fully himself, the demon and monster hopefully not in tow. Landing away from the house, he walked while listening to the neighborhood. For once, not judging the sights and sounds of the lives being lived within the houses he passed. He approached Ginny and Anna's home and 3 new security lights as they glared down on him. Appropriate, and my doing, he whispered. A curtain shimmied, so he called out, "Hello, Ginny, it's Sam." Standing a dozen feet from the door, feeling a healthy distance would be less startling. "Sam," she called, "you're alive." "I am," he responded. "I realized it must have been you who left the wood, and I wish to thank you." He heard the deadbolt slide and the chain unlatch. She swung the door open, scanning both ways before making eye contact. Come in," she said, almost whisking him inside. "I'm sorry, but ever since that bear incident, I've been on edge." Sam had seen all the beast had seen. Ginny had never once turned her head. On a mission to bring her daughter to safety, the savage howling told her all she needed to know. I wanted to tell you, Jenny. The bear has been killed. A local hunter heard the commotion. He came over and shot it. I had been minutes away from arriving, or I might not be talking to you now. Jenny sprang from the room and hugged him hard. Sam awkwardly put his arms around her to reciprocate for normalcy. Sharing near deaths can be bonding, Jenny said. That's when Sam saw Anna on the couch, her eyes unblinking, locked on him, and she was terrified. That's such a relief, she huffed. I'm afraid I may have overreacted. Oh, the lights. Well, maybe not a bad idea in any case. Would you stay for dinner, Sam? Oh, I don't want to put you out. None of that again, she grinned. Besides, I'm so glad you're all right. Aren't we, sweetie? Anna's eyes darted back and forth. Ginny leaned in, whispering, She's been having bad dreams since that day. Could you maybe reassure her the bear has been shot and it's over with? It would mean a lot to me. I'd be glad to, he said, taking a deep breath and exhaling into the situation so foreign to him. He had no plan for the words on the paper Dinah carved into his intention and his shame. Anna slid further away from him as he sat down on the edge of the couch. He was hoping to give her as much space as she needed, but seeing her take the initiative reminded him. Resist comfort, demon, he said to himself. You're not here to claim the tone or the outcome. Anna, Sam said, I'm so sorry for what you saw that day. Oh, she said, there was a bear in your diner. It was kind of scary. Yes, Anna, your mom told me. Reading her, as he'd read millions of humans, wicked and middling, he discovered she was exceptional, and she was impenetrable to the familiar ways of corruption, resolved in wanting nothing for herself but her mother's safety. Anna was the child parent, but she had still been deeply fractured by his doing. But, Sam said, is it possible you saw something different from a bear? Even scarier, perhaps? Remembering his idiotic attempts to comfort Samuel in his last moments, he acknowledged how ill-equipped he was to guide someone towards any semblance of peace. Anna looked at Sam blankly. Then she stood and walked to the other side of the room by the desk where she could more follow her mother's movements. She was in the kitchen. It was a bear, she said flatly. Sam watched her micro-movements, the constant tracking of her mom in the kitchen, quick repeated scans of the room, and her hand laying across the top drawer of the desk. I understand, Anna, but you would not be crazy if you happened to see something that was more than just a bear. Was I helping or hurting, he thought. The girl was completely lost, as she had shifted her own reality to support her mother's, and she was paying dearly for the sacrifice. No, it was just a bear, but a really big and ugly bear. Seeing she spent much of her young life readily putting herself in harm's way to protect her mother, her fingers fearfully clutching the wooden surface of the desk, telling Sam where Ginny's gun was kept, secreted there in case her husband ever returned to hurt her or her daughter. Shooting Sam would fracture the young girl permanently. She'd seen something no amount of shaming stare-downs or putting herself in harm's way could resolve. The hideous, hateful thing would not stop coming at her till she was that hateful too. In her dreams, it was delivering on that promise. Sam could see it in her expression, covering her like a greasy robe, waiting for a weakened moment to get in. It was that voice of hell, waiting for its moment to crawl into Ginny. I'm only saying what the hunter shot, looking far more, he said it looked far more gruesome than a bear. Yes, she responded, it was monstrous, but it was still just a bear. Sam, Ginny called out. Sam turned his head to the kitchen, hearing the desk drawer slightly open. Yes, Ginny. intentionally looking away so the girl would not feel his attention targeted on her, his ears tracking her movements. As she lay her hand on the gun in the drawer, Sam heard the metal slightly dragging across the dry wood of the drawer's desk. At least she could feel an advantage, he thought. Sam was aware from his history that shooting him would likely bring out the monster in full form. His own personage, fractured in a dozen directions, shared one trait: self-preservation. That is, with the exception of Sam. The devil had learned, in having given worse than death, and received worse than death, that there are unquestionably fates far worse, and unless he could strengthen Anna, her fate would be sealed. I've decided to go with fish sticks tonight. We don't have guests often. Thank you, Ginny, Sam answered. It's been a long time since I've had them. It's almost how Name taught me at the diner. They suggested I was a better prep work and hosting than actual cooking. But I watched them anyway. So much of that time has been coming back to me, almost as if I were dreaming the days under their mentoring. I mean, they weren't really my mentors, but looking back, they kind of were. I kind of have just been wondering. I thought it was just a summer worker, but I'd always felt that I could see how they created such a world amongst and to themselves, but also inviting. Sam interrupted. Oh, so sorry. Please go on. Well, exactly, she said. They are unique souls. Indeed, Jenny. Anna sighed quietly. It was more than a child's sigh of frustration, but of that first judgmental insult towards her mother, for not having seen the monster, for not knowing that the gun was not bought to be kept in a drawer, but to be used against such creatures she had just opened the door to. These crazy grandparents I so needed. She paused, looking into the living room. Anna moved forward so she could not see her daughter's hand lying on the new gun, the gun that may or may not be fired into Sam over the next few minutes. Anna smiled easily to her mother, and it unnerved the hell out of the devil. Where did she learn that? Her father, possibly? Ginny had become more animated and comfortable as she spun back into the kitchen. Sam returned his attention to the 13-year-old girl, breathing in short spurts. The gun was small and silver, and the coldest thing she had ever touched. Anna wrapped her hand slowly around the handle. Now she was afraid of letting it go. I know your mom is the most important person in the world to you. He paused to check that Anna was still capable of registering words, and I'd rather go straight to hell for her, or yourself be hurt. He whispered across the room, but it's important that you know. I will tell you the truth. He heard the gun barrel drag inside the drawer. But you're already lying to me, she said. You're part of that monster. Anna then checked to be sure her mother didn't hear. The gun jiggled in her hand. I see it over and over every time I close my eyes, and worse when I sleep. Come to me, little killer, said the unheard voice. The voice of hell poisoning the air, festering towards Anna and awaiting an invitation. He's earned a death, hasn't he? I should just shoot you, shouldn't I? She said to Sam with fear and anger, desperate for guidance. Yes, you should, Sam answered, and we both know why. But who are you killing me for? My mother, and me. She cut back, sneering. Her friend, Sam, was no longer her friend. Are you part of that monster? Anna asked coldly. Yes, I am, he replied. Are you the devil? I am. But the quiet devil persisted. There are mountains of reasons why I am so wrong and so undeserving to even be. But in this moment, you are still your mother's daughter. She's been hit with enough trouble, don't you think? The darker layers of the beast wanted to say, demanding it even, making the assumption that she, the girl, having already been exposed to its most primordial self, was by all rights theirs. The poisonous air spoke again to her emotions as Sam fought to pull the filthy mist away from her. The space between his eyes looked so lonely. Don't you think, girl? A bullet would look so pretty there. She shivered, focusing on the point between Sam's eyes, but also felt as if it were now a plan. And I'm going to stop there.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Oh, thank you very much.